Well, Axios had a huge breaking story on Friday. It's very disturbing, and it clearly talks about a constitutional crisis that we need to get serious about here, setting all politics aside. Take a look. It's huge, obviously, as you can see. Axios breaking FBI arrests judge in Wisconsin. Picture of Kash Patel, because clearly this story is all about Kash Patel. And of course, this comes on the heels of multiple stories about how judges are blocking executive orders and executive actions and things that are well within the constitutional authority of the president. President's been very outspoken about those things. And you've heard Rachel Maddow and Jake Tapper furrowing his brow, both of them, about how this is a constitutional crisis and the Trump is going to defy these judges and it's awful. And so, of course, now that Trump is arresting one of the judges, this is awful. It's FBI arrests a judge in Wisconsin. What is it? Of course, it's not a federal judge. And you have to click on the story and read about 3 paragraphs in until you realize that the FBI arrested this judge for, well, literally breaking the law. Aiding and abetting and giving safe harbor to a federal criminal and preventing him from being arrested, preventing federal agents from arresting him. But boy, that headline, it sure tells a different story. In fact, why isn't there a picture of the judge instead of the director of the FBI? It's almost like Axios is trying to manipulate their readers and their viewers into thinking this story is something very different than it actually is. Thankfully, you are smart enough to follow the facts. Attorney General Pam Bondi appeared after the arrest and laid out exactly what this judge in Wisconsin did to earn those handcuffs.
Set the stage for you and Sandra. This was truly horrific. This guy was in court being prosecuted by a state prosecutor for domestic violence battery. He had beat up 2 people, a guy and a girl, hit the guy 30 times, knocked him to the ground, choked him, beat up a woman so badly they both had to go to the hospital. And John, you know, it's so rare for victims to want to cooperate. They wanted to cooperate. They were sitting in the courtroom with the state prosecutor. The judge learns that ICE was outside to get the guy because he had been deported in 2013, came back in our country, commits these crimes, charged with committing these crimes, victims in court. Judge finds out. She goes out in the hallway, screams at the immigration officers. She's furious, visibly shaken, upset, sends them off to talk to the chief judge. She comes back in the courtroom. You're not going to believe this. Takes the defendant and the defense attorney back in her chambers, takes them out of private exit and tells them to leave, while a state prosecutor and victims of domestic violence are sitting in the courtroom.
What is it with these dirtbag leftists that decide they want to die on the hill of a multi-deported illegal immigrant criminal accused of domestic battery? It's like, where's Chris Van Hollen when we need him? What is that? Do you see the pattern of behavior here? And this judge decides to give safe harbor to the criminal. Now, somehow that didn't make it into the Axios headline. But if you're just, following the news in a cursory way, because you have a normal life, and you see that headline go by, this headline go by, you think to yourself, good God, what the hell is happening here? The FBI and Kash Patel and Donald Trump are arresting judges now because they've ruled against them. That's the implication. And of course, that's exactly what we saw from so many Democrats. Amy Klobuchar, this is not normal. This is the kind of crisis we can't have an administration arresting judges. No, actually, you want the Justice Department arresting judges who break the law. Oh, and about that judge, who could have seen this coming? I'm shocked. I'm shocked to learn that this is the kind of person who would behave that way. That's, by the way, an abomination. Abe would never. Abe would absolutely never. Hey, Judge, the founder of my political party is not your prom dress. Stop politicizing Abe Lincoln. Despicable. Of course, the usual suspects ran in front of cameras and started wringing their hands and telling you that the real problem here is Donald Trump and the Justice Department and the FBI. David Brooks, he's a conservative columnist for the New York Times and for PBS. David, what do you think, dude?
Well, obviously, they're trying to send a note of intimidation, not only to her, but to all judges and maybe to all Americans. But I don't yet know the specific details of this case, whether...
Stop right there. Stop right there. This is quintessential left-wing intelligentsia babble. What you just heard, that brilliant 12-second interlude, encapsulates all of it. This is why they're so insufferable. This is why we can't stand them. And this is why they have lost all credibility with the American people. That 12 seconds. Let's enjoy it again.
Well, obviously, they're trying to send...
Obviously. No, we're going to watch it together. Keep me on. First word is obvious. So it's obvious what they're doing. Obviously, I know what they're doing. It is obviously. So in other words, just the average person watching this can easily reach this conclusion because it is obvious. It's as obvious as the nose on my face, which is pretty significant. Okay, so the first word is obviously. Okay, what's obvious, David?
Obviously, they're trying to send a note of intimidation.
This is about intimidation. They is the FBI. They is the Justice Department. They is the Trump White House. Okay, so they're obviously sending intimidation to...
not only to her, but to all judges and maybe to all Americans.
To her, to all judges, and to all Americans. Wow, that is a serious charge. Obviously, they're trying to send a message of intimidation to everyone in the country. Okay, and what's next?
But I don't yet know the specific details of this case.
Why do they make my job so easy? It's like they go out of their way. It's like, you know what? There's a couple of different ways I can phrase this, but I think I'll say it this way so that Larry has an easy Monday. It's obvious that this is an intimidation signal to this woman, to judges, and to all Americans. By the way, I don't know the specific details of this case, but it's obvious what they're doing. Okay. We're only 12 seconds in. All right, David, I'll let you finish.
Whether she escorted the guy out the jury door or whether she's let him, so that's all murky. I don't want to comment on this specific case, but especially on the issue of immigration. There are a lot of people who are appalled by what the administration is doing. And there will be times for civil disobedience. And to me, let's say she did escort this guy out the door. If federal enforcement agencies come to your courtroom and you help a guy escape, that is two things. Yeah. One, it strikes me as maybe something illegal, but it also strikes me as something heroic. And in times of trouble, then people are sometimes called to do civil disobedience. And in my view, when people do civil disobedience, they have to pay the price. That's part of the heroism of it, frankly. Mm. And so you can both think that she shouldn't have legally done this and that morally protecting somebody against, or maybe not even in this case, but in other cases, frankly, a predatory enforcement agency.
I mean, so it's obviously illegal, even though he didn't use the words obviously illegal, but it's heroic because this is civil disobedience and it's okay for a look. I thought no one was above the law. I thought that was sort of like, I can't believe I'm saying this, but let's turn to CNN to be the voice of reason on this one. Yes, you heard me right. CNN, the voice of reason.
Looking at the complaint, let's strip the politics out of it. This is a crime. If they can prove what happened here, it is a crime. This judge, let's strip the Trump of it all out. Let's strip the immigration of it all out. Let's say law enforcement shows up at a building with an arrest warrant. They're looking for person A. Person B then says, hey, there's a secret escape door out back. I'm going to show you the way, and then ushers that person out the back door. That is textbook obstruction. Looking at the
textbook obstruction. Or if you're David Brooks of the New York Times and PBS, it's righteous civil disobedience. But try not getting the shot Try not getting the COVID shot in an act of civil disobedience and see what David Brooks says about you. All right, let's flip over to MSNBC. Michael Steele, he's a former Republican chairman. He's a former Republican chairman.
I love the legal piece, and that's an important part of all of this in so many ways. To me, though, the most disturbing part is what happened to Judge Dugan.
It's terrible.
And the fact that you have American citizens applauding it and wanting more, and having members of Congress, Republican members of Congress specifically, saying arrest more. So how do we then gird ourselves against further erosion in that lane where there's another judge, this time a federal judge, who rules in a way and Trump doesn't like it? What recourse do we have to protect them?
Okay, so do you see the leap that was just made? Do you see the leap that was just made? It took CNN's legal analyst to be the voice of reason and say, this is a crime. And let me just reset the facts here. This guy was in the country illegally, had been deported, came back to the country illegally, and was now under arrest for domestic battery. He tried to strangle a woman and beat up a dude. He was in court. The victims were there testifying against him, and this judge helped him escape deportation from the ICE agents who were in the hallway outside the courtroom ready to take him into custody. And Michael Steele, former Republican chairman, just took that and said, oh, this is horrible what happened to the judge who committed the crime, and then immediately says, what's stopping Trump from arresting a federal judge who rules against him on one of his policies? The two literally have nothing to, and I mean, the only thing they have in common is that the two people in question are wearing black robes. That's it. They literally have nothing in common. But this is the kind of garbage they feed to their audience. You wonder why we're so separated in this country, why we're so divided, why the two sides can't meet? Because of this garbage that NBC News, supported by Comcast Universal, pays for, promotes, celebrates. I'll let Steele finish here.
Because you're on the front line on the paper, right? The Constitution, the principles, the ideas, the norms that we all, try to live by. But when you arrest the judge, how do we as citizens respond to that?
It's so funny because the whole statement, when you arrest a judge, you can't arrest, like the idea that a judge getting arrested is what's the problem. The facts don't matter. What the judge is accused of doing doesn't matter. Just the whole bottom line here is the norms that have been broken because you arrested a judge. Michael Steele should really follow the news a little bit more, because last I checked, he and his pals, they were celebrating arresting a former president. They were celebrating a midnight raid on the former president's home by the FBI. Celebrating it. They were cheering the mugshot of a former president. Book him! Because no one is above the law, except, of course, if you're a district judge in Wisconsin. It's got to be so hard. It's so hard to be them. It's like, I know sometimes, listen, I'm an opinion journalist. I let you know what my opinion is. Sometimes my opinions may change a little bit. And it's weird for me because I know what I believe. I know what I have believed. I know what I believe today. For the most part, it's consistent. But sometimes I nuance, I change. It's like, I sort of looked at it this way, but I'm now starting to look at it that way. And I'll say it to you. I'll say, listen, this is how I was before. This is how I... But these guys, no one's above the law. Arrest Trump. Throw him in jail. When you arrest a judge, what kind of message is being sent here? What are people supposed to... And again, I want to be clear. This is not a political arrest. This judge, according to CNN, broke the law. According to CNN, she broke the law. But the politicization of this move and the lies that people in the media and politicians are saying, you just saw Michael Steele do that pivot. Well, what's stopping him from arresting a federal judge who rules against him? Well, there have been a lot of federal judges who have ruled against him in the last 100 days, and he has never hinted at arresting any of them. So we have a pretty solid track record. And by the way, what about all the judges who ruled against him in the first term? So that hypothetical scenario is complete and utter bullshit. And yet he pushes it there. He pushes it there to freak people out. But he's not the only one. Chuck Schumer, the hell of a forehead job, by the way, suggested the exact same thing about this case. Again, this is the case of a Wisconsin judge who broke the law, it sure looks like, by aiding and abetting a criminal alien and helping them escape. But how does Chuck take it?
They're trying to intimidate judges. This is not the first time or the second. They've said they want to impeach judges. They said they're going to go after judges who don't agree with them. That is so against the Constitution. What Trump, Biondi, and the whole Justice Department are trying to do is push that judge, threaten that judge, so the judge is no longer impartial. It is outrageous. You cannot have a democracy without an independent judiciary, and they're trying to clip the wings of that independence.
Wow. So they're trying to intimidate this judge. It's all about judicial intimidation. By the way, this judge is not a federal judge. So I'm not quite sure what is in it for the Trump administration to intimidate a local judge. No, what they're doing is arresting a judge who broke the law and impeded ICE officers. Let me just say, boys and girls, if you're not a judge, I don't care what job you have, if you know that there are ICE law enforcement agents there looking to arrest somebody and you're in their proximity and you help that person escape, you are going to jail. You are going to jail. It is not an act of civil disobedience, I assure you. So Chuck Schumer is really worried that we cannot have a democracy if judges are feeling intimidated by elected officials. Right, Chuck? That's what Chuck said this weekend. Also, Chuck Schumer, 5 years ago.
And they're taking away fundamental rights. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price.
Thank you again to our buddy Western Lensman for a great find and a great montage. Subscribe to him on X. He's great. The good news here is that as we woke up this morning, the White House is in no way bullied or intimidated. They are in no way backing down. In fact, they decorated the driveway of the north entrance of the White House, the main entrance, with these signs. These are 100 ICE criminals, illegal alien criminals who have been arrested and now face deportation or other criminal proceedings by ICE. These signs are all lining the driveway, the circular driveway that you see iconically in front of the White House on a regular basis. Now, we'll get to those signs in just a second, but it's pretty awesome, actually. And they also had a special briefing in the briefing room specifically with Tom Homan about these arrestees. And here they were handing out this document to all the reporters, 100 ICE arrests. And it's got all of their names and it's got all of the things that they did. And they, because they want the reporters to have the information so the reporters can report on it, because they know the reporters will not report on it. Now, here's another interesting thing you need to know about the location of all of these signs that they put up. Yes, that's that circular driveway, the north side of the White House. This is opposite. This is opposite the Lafayette Square. The other side of the White House is the South Lawn that leads to the Ellipse and the mall. That's where Marine One lands. That's where they do the Easter egg roll. That's where the big thing is. This is like right in front of this iconic side. That's the West Wing right there. And that little white building to the right there that you saw, hold on, let me show it to you. Right there. See how it that's the White House, that big building. And see that little jutted out part right there? That's where the White House briefing room is. This is the entrance where reporters come in. to go to the briefing room. Every single reporter who went to the briefing today and works the beat at the White House walked past every single one of those signs. But you know what else? The perspective you have right there as you see those signs and see the White House in the background, does it look familiar? It should, because this is what's known as Pebble Beach. Pebble Beach is right off of the driveway, and there's like 10 tents there, little green awnings. And inside each one of those awnings is a remote camera with a little crew for each of the networks that do reports from the White House. So when you see a reporter, I'm standing in front of the White House right now, that's the shot you get, right? In the background. In other words, all of the cameras for all of those networks that shoot their stand-ups with their reporters off Pebble Beach, that's what they call it, they get that shot in the background of their reporter. In other words, those signs will be in the background of all of the shots of all of the reporters reporting from the White House today. It's freaking brilliant. And MSNBC, when they discovered this, they were not very happy.
White House has put up about 100 posters of what they say are unauthorized immigrants who have been arrested for violent crimes. You can see them there. They put them up on the driveway of the White House. If you look here, that's the West Wing just at the forefront, the executive mansion itself to the left. But what's particularly noteworthy about this location is it is right directly behind the positions where TV correspondents do their hits from the White House lawn. So therefore, no matter what network you're on, that includes MSNBC, if you're doing a hit from the White House right now, those pictures will be behind you. The White House doing a briefing in about a half hour about what they're doing here. White House.
It's absolutely brilliant. And understand why they're so upset at MSNBC. Because their regular viewers would have never heard anything about these criminal illegal aliens who are being captured, given their due process, and then deported the hell out of this country. They would never have known that the president was even capable of doing this because, as far as MSNBC viewers are concerned, they thought they needed new legislation and comprehensive immigration reform. Remember? Because Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, that's what they said. We've done everything we can. We can't secure the border. We can't arrest anybody. We can't deport anybody. We need new laws. Give me the power. Give us the ability to do it. And as far as MSNBC viewers are concerned, that's still where we are. But now they've got those sides in the background. MSNBC can't avoid it, although maybe they won't even do any stand-ups with their reporters now in front of the White House today, as long as those signs are there. It's beautiful. It's great to see a presidency where they actually think creatively outside of the box and push the issue so that they get their word out. And it's working. Just take a listen to Rachel Maddow lying to her audience about what the polls say with regard to the American people's support or lack thereof of the president's agenda. And our buddy Maze Moore over on X, subscribe to his account too. He's great. He juxtaposed Rachel Maddow's reporting with the latest actual numbers about whether the American people support this or not.
There's a new Washington Post ABC Ipsos poll that's out today. Their headline, Trump's immigration ratings turn negative. He's always been able to count on people being with him on the nasty things he says about immigrants. Not anymore. People are not with him on immigration anymore. The thing he can always count on having a positive approval rating on, not anymore. So it's all bad for Trump in terms of the public just soundly rejecting everything he's doing, even the stuff that he says just for political effect. It's having the opposite political effect that he intends. I don't know that we have ever seen another first 100 days from any president this roundly rejected and hated by the American people.
Yeah, that's the CBS News poll that you see in the background there that shows a 12-point approval on Trump's policies with regard to border security and immigration. Honestly, I don't know what business MSNBC is in. I know they call themselves a news station, but that right there from Rachel Maddow, that's not news. And her viewers, they are not informed. But they do enjoy a good show, and she does put on a hell of a show.